Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Bane Hollow, as you may have seen from the intro, and I'm here to talk to you all today about conditioning. Alright, well, some of you may be asking, what is conditioning? Well, to put it simply, the fighting game term conditioning is used to express the art of showing someone a pattern of attacks or defensive moves, and then deviating from the pre-established pattern to land a hit or escape a difficult situation. So, now that we know what conditioning means, let's go ahead and dive into some examples. Okay, in this first clip, we're going to take a look at a common conditioning mix-up, which is the Ken is going to initially land a throw, take a few steps back and forth, and then set himself up to throw his opponent again. So, at this point, the Ken has thrown his opponent 3 times in a row, and the pattern has been established that he's going to pace back and forth on his opponent's wake-up before going in for the throw. Seeing this multiple times, the opponent is fairly certain that he will get thrown again, so the obvious counterplay in this situation would be to tech the throw. But let's see what happens when he tries to tech. After consciously establishing a pattern, the offensive Ken understands that his opponent will probably try to avoid his next throw attempt. So, breaking away from the established pattern, he backdashes out of grab range and hits a crouching middle kick into super for a solid punish. In this next clip, we're going to take a look at what happens when someone attempts a layered mix-up without first conditioning his opponent to respect his options. This is important because a lot of beginners will attempt certain mix-ups and not understand why their opponent didn't react the way that they wanted them to. Here we see the Heihachi attempt an electric wind godfist mix-up. The Kazumi has not yet been conditioned to respect the mix-up and mashes out with the fast jab. Instead, what you'll see a lot of high-level players go for after a slightly plus or negative move is a sidestep. This is done because sidestep block is a fairly safe, non-committal option that can lead to huge damage if the opponent decides to check the mix-up with a quick button, since generally, quick buttons do not contain tracking properties. Now that the sidestepping option has been established, the opponent may start going for slower tracking moves. We've now come full circle. After conditioning the opponent to deal with sidesteps or risk losing substantial life, the Kazumi player is conditioned to go for the slower startup tracking move, opening up the first mix-up. Now that we've seen 2 clips that require the opponent to choose the wrong option, let's go over a classic set play scenario in which all the options are covered. Here, Erron Black starts off with his 2-1 string, which leaves him at a substantial advantage on hit. This causes all of the opposing Erron Black's options to be punished or stuffed on startup. These clips are important because it shows why you should generally use the inescapable and safe option of a mix-up first versus new opponents if you have it. This establishes the conditioning that your opponent must block your mix-ups and is forced to hold the block. Never assume that your opponent knows every scenario and is above mashing. Train them to respect you. Here's what the string looks like versus jump. Versus grab. Versus his fastest move, which is down jab. Versus backdash. Versus block. And finally, versus fatal blow. After being punished for all of his escape attempts, he finally decides that it's time to block. He is now conditioned that he has no options and he is forced to block, which opens up the grab. One of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of players make is going for the unsafe mix-up before conditioning their opponent. After seeing the previous clips, it is clear that the only safe option was to block. But what if we had skipped all of the conditioning and went straight for the unsafe mix-up? So in this situation, the only unsafe mix-up was the throw. Going straight to the punishable option against an opponent you've never played could cost you your life. Using safe mix-ups like this can help determine if your opponent is antsy or a safe and solid player, allowing you to adapt and potentially win a tournament set. Up until now, all of the clips have been about offensive conditioning, but what about defensively? Yep, turns out conditioning is not only limited to offense. After being anti-aired a few times, the opponent may just decide not to jump anymore, opening up better ground options. Or they could take a more aggressive approach, such as parrying into a combo of their own. After landing a punish on your anti-air attempt, he may attempt to do the same thing again. But this time, instead of going for the uppercut that he was conditioned to expect, we cross up his inputs and punish his punish attempt. Generally, the best way to keep from being conditioned on defense is to just mix up all of your options. Blocking, throw techs, delayed buttons, DPs. Knowing your options and mixing them up is a huge part of successful defense. Always choosing the same option when presented with the same scenario over and over again will most likely get you killed, such as the constant throw teching as presented in this clip. The last form of conditioning I'd like to go over is movement conditioning. Without having to risk pressing a button, you can still condition your opponent to do what you want them to. Much like professional fighters, using dodges and feints can be highly beneficial. In this clip, we see Venom use his web zip to move in on his opponent. The opponent's reaction is to immediately invulnerable super and tag. In a game like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, this can lead to you getting mixed up. This time, Venom does web zip and dashes back to bait the invulnerable super, potentially netting a punish. Due to the non-committal nature of backdash, even if Winter Soldier decided to not invulnerable super here, Venom would have been safe. In this final clip, we have Venom chasing a Winter Soldier. After conditioning the Venom that he's just going to backdash, the Venom tries to pursue him. The Winter Soldier then meets him with the button and punishes Venom's attempt to chase him. All in all, conditioning is a huge part of fighting games. So be sure to make conscious decisions and be aware of the signs and signals you're giving out to your opponents. Thanks for watching and stay solid.